Right. Hi, I'm Kristin Clark, and I'm here with Bobby Hood with College Planning Untangled. And we are filming and going live, actually, part two of our three-part survey, our series about anxious to excited, about picking a college major. So, Bobby, how are you doing today?
Just great. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, this is an important series because it's, you know, students, this can be some of the most, negative conversations you have in that college application process. You can get stressful when you start trying to tell students what their major should be or something like that, right? Or they have no idea and they think it's too early to pick, but it's really important.
Yeah. And what's happening, Bobby, and what I've found through working with a bunch of my clients is adults, mostly parents, by the way, are saying things to their kids, trying to help, help them figure out this idea of a major. But what
Mhm.
they're saying is actually making these kids anxious. And that's what we're trying to educate parents on so that it's like, okay, quit saying that, but um, and last time we talked about, when you just say pick a major,
Mhm.
right? So we covered that. So if you missed that, go to part one. But for part two, here's what adults slash parents are saying to their kiddos:
Mhm.
do what interests you.
Yep.
Yeah. And what's interesting is the kids are going, yeah, well, if hanging out with my friends and playing video games is a job, I'm all in,
Right.
right? But the challenge that they have is they just don't know what jobs are out there. And I
Mhm.
mean, most of the time, Bobby, they have no idea what mom and dad do. They know the
Right.
title, right?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
know a job title, but they don't know what it means. And yeah, and they don't know how to translate the idea of find something you're interested in, how to translate that to actually what that might mean. Right. And that
exactly,
creates anxiety.
for sure. And I will tell you, even I'll say worse, but even amplify that
Mhm.
is when adults say, do what you're passionate about, which
Mhm.
I always love because I'm like, oh my gosh, can you just name one thing that
Right.
you're passionate about?
Yeah.
Some people might be able to come up with one thing, but I mean, that's a tough question. That's like passionate. That's a big word.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it took me, 4 or 5 careers before I found what I was passionate about. Right. And the things that would have naturally occurred to me when I was 17 that I was passionate about would have not I would not have been able to articulate it and be like, "Oh, I want to be I want to do this," right? I would not have been able to figure it out. And that's
Yeah.
why like I was kind of all over the place because I never had anything that helped me focus and understand how to get from, "Oh, I'm interested in these things and I like these things," to that telling me something about what kinds of jobs would be good and what kind of majors.
Right. And that's the good news is this. I know why parents are doing this. I mean, they sound like logical things to say,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And they are. It's in essence, it's the right thing to say. It's
Yep.
just that the kids don't know how to translate that into something concrete, like you just said.
Mhm.
And it's if you break it down like this, what things are you interested in doing? What do you like to do when nobody else is telling
Mhm.
you have to do something?
Yeah.
And you make this much less of a and based on that, here's what you're going to do. It's like, no, just ask the question. What do you love to do when nobody else makes you do something? Right?
I think that's a really important question because it's like, I mean, another way I like to think of it is what's the thing that when you sit down to start doing it, you'll do it for 6 hours and not notice that any time it's passed and not feel tired, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I find when I'm working with my clients, so interest will maybe equal the industry that they might want to consider.
Hmm.
Because here's the deal: interests change.
Right.
Over time, they change.
Mhm.
But if we can start matching that to a type of industry, you know what happens? The light bulb goes off and they get
Mhm.
excited because they get to do something that they are interested in.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a big part of it. Right. And, and that's what's interesting is the idea of like translating these things. Like if you had somebody who said, okay, the thing I love doing is I can sit and I can paint or draw or, make a collage for 6 hours and that is something I'm excited about and, whatever. Well, that doesn't mean, okay, so you have to go to art school and get a fine art degree. that could mean you might want to work in marketing, or you might want to do this or that, right? You might want to design digital presentations. You might want to work outdoors, building outdoor sets and things. Like there are a million things that could mean, right? It's just the starting point for the conversation.
It is. And I would even tell you that you're getting into my second piece of this. And I think really the drawing thing is more about your skills.
Sure.
So
right.
your skills will actually mean your job. But let's go back to what you just brought up. For drawing, let's say you love shoes. You love running shoes.
Okay. Right.
Now maybe the industry is, oh my gosh, let me go to Nike or Adidas or one of these other places and design shoes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And use that skill that you have of drawing as your job.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So you start with an interest, and then you think, okay, now in that industry, what are the things, right? And then you say, oh, okay, these skills and those skills. Wow. Yeah. And this is what people don't know to do. And that's why I think it's just this open-ended statement, like, do what you're interested in, and then no more information. That's very anxiety inducing. But I think what we're saying is you can have conversations, and then that's when all you're trying to do is get that light bulb to go off, right?
Yes. And then
see that light in a student's eyes.
It is. And get that interest, where they're like, oh, well, hold on a minute. That sounds fun. Right. And then, some more things that I typically layer in with that conversation is, all right, now let's talk about your preferences. And this really kind of translates to what decisions you need to make about what you want your job or your life to be, which is things like the normal things, like even how we pick out colleges. Do you want to be in a big city? Do you want to be in a small town? Do you want to be close to mom and dad? Do you want to work in a hospital environment? Would you rather work with old people or kids?
Yeah. Do you want to work in a large group as part of a team? Do you want to be mostly left alone and work on projects solo? Right.
Absolutely. And then the last piece of it is really thinking about your talents, which, I work with my students on their Clifton strengths, which helps them understand those activities within a job that are going to make them happy, and that they're going to, just feel good about the work they do because they're using those natural talents every day. And what I'm looking for all of this, Bobby, when you put those four together, is what patterns start to just kind of show themselves. And I'm trying to think, okay, let me talk about Noah. When I was working with Noah, the first question I asked him, Noah, what do you do when nobody's watching or when you don't have to? And he's like, Kristin, I love golfing. I love golf courses. I like going to the restaurants. I love going into the pro shop. I love the smell of the grass. Just everything he talked about was, if I could just be there every day, that's what I would do. And when we talked about, the things of his skills, he's like, well, he's creative and he liked to build things and, use his hands. And, the preferences kind of segued into the whole golf thing too. And then his talents also kind of resonated in this. But where we ended up is, I was like, Noah, what if you could build golf courses, like design and build golf courses? Would that be fun for you? And he was like, oh my gosh, if I could do that every day, I would be so excited. Right. And so it hit all the marks. He got to be around golf courses. He got to build with his hands. He is creative. On his strengths, one of his strengths was harmony, which means that he's able to get people to agree, to a point where they're in agreement. And we talked about vendors, where when you're bringing in vendors to build anything, right, you got to be like, hey, we've got to all work together, so that he'd be able to use that type of skill. And another one of his idea was ideation, which means he's really good at coming up with new ideas. And we're like, hey, when you're in construction, you've always got to be juggling and coming up with new ways to solve problems.
Solutions to strange problems that arise. Yeah.
So again, we started layering these things in, and all of a sudden Noah got super excited, and he's now up at A&M in their landscape architecture department and, having a ball.
That's amazing. And I have a cousin who spent many years, kind of like I did, going through career to career. And And she was super excited about outdoors and working with her hands and learning about plants and animals and things. And she worked for the rural development in Texas, going around teaching people about fire ants and things. And then finally, the exact same story ended up like now she is the head of landscape design for a very large state college system, and is designing the flower beds and the trees and the ecosystem of the entire university campus. And it's amazing, but it's like, oh, all of those things that you did all ended up pointing. But see, that's the thing, is it can take you years and years and years if you don't think this stuff out beforehand. If she could have figured that out, she could have gone into landscape design from the very beginning, instead of getting a master's degree in it, in her 40s, which is very similar to my path, and so this is so important. This is how people can find their way into getting right to something that I think a lot of people maybe feel resigned to the idea that there is no job that can be your passion, that job is just something you do, right, so that you can have fun in the rest of your life. But no, you can actually really enjoy your job.
You can enjoy your life.
Yep.
And Bobby, I think the reason, people have been resigned to that is because we haven't been having these conversations.
Right. Absolutely.
And
it's just making those simple statements and not elaborating and not having the right conversation. And I think, like I mentioned at the very beginning, there are parents who just say, oh no, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer. Those are jokes for a reason. I know several people who grew up being told that they were going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or that they were going to go to, this school or that school. And that's very limiting.
It is, Bobby. And I will tell you, I just was in coaching a client yesterday on their strengths. And he had told me that he was like, yes, I'm thinking about being a financial advisor. And his mom just happened to walk through the room, and she's like, she came up and she leaned into the screen and she's like, Kristin, he does not want to be a financial advisor. And I was like, no.
He just told me he wanted to be a financial advisor.
I was like, yes, it was interesting. But
wow.
What I saw on the screen, though, and what I saw happening, Bobby, is this kid shut down like in 3 seconds. And, and it also, for parents, so he also kind of dug his heels in for a minute with her, right? Now, when she walked away, I looked at him and I said, listen, I will listen to your parents, but I really don't care what their opinion is. I care what your opinion is. And I said, so if that is something that you truly want to be, then own it.
Yeah.
But don't dig your heels in.
Right.
And be open to, changing your mind or thinking through.
Right. Yeah. That could be just as bad. Yeah.
Right. So I was like, but dude, it's you and me, we're looking eyeball to eyeball here, just know. And it was funny because by the end of the call, I said, now where are you at? Scale of, 1 to 100 percentage wise that you want to be a financial advisor. He goes, I'm at 50-50. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. That's a good place to be.
It's a good place to be, right? That he's still open to ideas. But the point of that story truly was, man, I saw him clamp down as fast as, guys, that will happen every time. If you just tell, get into the mode of ask. Just keep asking
absolutely questions. Because you absolutely, the way forward, if you have a personal thing like stockbrokers can't be trusted or something like that, right? But the response is, so why? What makes you excited about that job? What is it about that, right? Because that's such an interesting profession, because it's both all personality and selling, but also numbers and finance. And like you can be a numbers finance person who never talks to anyone, or you can be a numbers finance person who sells. That's a particular kind of person. And that's like, it's a very, very good career if you like it.
Right.
But there are so many other things you can do with the same interests and skills also. And so he may just like have, oh yeah, this title, right? But when you start exploring all the things you could do, he might be like, oh, I might like this a little better, than that,
Absolutely. But it's all about having the conversation and not just telling. And I know
for sure.
You've heard me say this a ton of times. As parents, we've been telling these kids how to get stuff done forever. So it's hard to kind of stand back and let them start making the decisions.
Yeah.
But for this particular thing, parents, you can't make this decision for them. They have to do it on their own. And that's what's so hard about it, Bobby, and why people put it off, because they're like, it's hard.
Mm. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well, I think it's so important. And, you know, people who are tuning in, this is our second part of what we're going to do, a third part next week, right? And this is, I mean, the most important thing to have conversations about right now. You've got students getting their college acceptances back, things like that, right? Getting everything done, trying to make decisions, and you're going to need to declare a major sooner than later. So get on it so it doesn't come as a surprise next summer.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Okay, this is wonderful.
Talk soon.
See you next week.